Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to the Hastings District Council Performance and Monitoring Committee for the 21st of November 2023. Today's meeting has been live streamed, and please note that if you see councillors looking at their laptops or their iPads or devices, they're looking at them to follow the meeting with the information on. So I'll first start with a karakia. Tuatai mai I ranga, tuatai mai I raro, tuatai mai I roto, tuatawa mai I waho, kia tau I ti Māori tū, ti Māori ora ki ti koto, hui mei, hui e, taiki e. So I'll just do the English translation of this. I summon from above, I summon from below, I summon from within, I summon from the surrounding environment. I ask that you all enrich us all, unified, connected, and strong. Kia ora. Today we have Councillor Nepe joining us by Zoom. We have apologies from Councillors Sholem, Buddo and Harvey. Can I have a mover, please, for those? Councillor Watkins, the seconder. Councillor Hickey. All those in favour, say aye. Against? And councillors are reminded that there's any conflicts of interest that may arise during today's meeting to declare those, please, before the item is discussed. So the previous minutes have been circulated of the Performance and Monitoring meeting on the 21st of September 2023. Is there any discussion relating to those? If not, can I have a mover for those, please? I'd like to move the minutes be accepted. Councillor Dixon, and seconded by Councillor Jessup. All those in favour say aye. Against? Fantastic. So we have our first presentation today from Mr. Tim Aitken for the Horse of the Year. So, Tim, yep. And Sophie too. Yep. Welcome, Sophie. Welcome, Tim and Sophie. Right. So
through your chair, just by way of introduction, so we have this normal reporting cycle from Horse of the Year. So we have the annual report from earlier in the year, statement of intent, which looks forward, and in the report also you'll note the appointment of an independent director. The CV of Diane Humphreys is attached to your agenda papers in the public excluded part of the agenda, but it's there for your information as well. So.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Allen. So, Tim and Sophie, if you'd like to.
Yep. Turn that on. So, as you're all aware, this is our third event we've cancelled, which has created a number of challenges going forward. And one of the main ones is that, we believe we've actually exhausted our social goodwill with our sponsors and also our followers and suppliers. And we really have to run the event this year. One of the biggest issues we've got coming forward is that while we've done that, most people have left a lot of money in, and also our sponsors have left a lot of money in, and everyone else. But our actual increases of around 25% increase in our running costs, which is putting a bit of pressure on us. But as you'll see in our financial statement, which Sophie will run through in a minute, we are in a pretty good position as we go forward, which is good. As I said, it's very uncertain out in the economic times. We have got a lot of events cancelling at the moment due to weather, and to counteract that, one of the things that the Horse of the Year have done this year is we've actually increased our insurance from $16,000 to $55,000, and that insurance covers our event completely. If we cancel tomorrow, we'll be covered. So we'll get all our money back plus some, and our income, wasn't it? Yeah. So we're pretty happy with that. It is it's an exceptional cost. $55,000 in a situation we're in at the moment is quite high, but we believe that we don't have that ability to run an event or not run an event and then survive going forward. So this will give us that comfort. our marketing campaign this year is one of the things that maybe I'll get Sophie to cover over in a minute. So that's all good. And the other one is, look, I can't thank Hastings District Council enough for what they've done already on those grounds with the purchase. The Horse of the Year is already seeing some massive increase, or not massive increases, improvements
upgrades
going forward. And a lot of them aren't what you see when you walk around. It's actually what they're actually doing on the main arena. The main arena itself with the surface and that is, I think our riders are going to be very impressed. And even if we do get a wet event again, like we did 6-7 years ago, we believe that surface now will be able to handle it. So we, as I said, we can't thank you enough, and looking forward, going forward with what's going to happen on those grounds with everything else. What else have we got? We are going out to our riders and everyone. They are still very keen to come. It is the pinnacle event of the year. And I know there's a lot of riders out there that have been hanging out now for 3 years. This will be a 4th year they've been waiting to come. But the really good news going forward is we've actually got 2 teams confirmed coming from Australia to ride in the Oceania Challenge, which is the eventing. So I think that's eight horses and riders coming over. So that's going to be great. We're getting a lot of support as well from Equestrian Sports New Zealand, High Performance and Land Rover, just to help us with that. And so, we're in a really good position. We've got some very good support out there against that and going forward. And there's not a lot to really report. We haven't had an event for 3 years. Sorry, I'm waffling a bit, but it's just really to explain that Horse of the Year is great. We've got a great team behind us. We've got a great board. You've just seen we've got a new board member, Di, on board. You see her CV. She brings a wealth of experience around the sports and high performance sports, as well as also she's done a lot of work on boards. So we're really excited to see her on board. And I'm going to pass it on to Sophie to actually hit the nitty gritty of their finances.
I'll turn you off then.
Yeah.
I'm just going to add a little bit more to what Tim said. I just want to also, from an event manager's point of view, my main objective this year is to deliver a show, obviously, because everyone that's helped us in the last 3 years deserves it. That's pretty much what we're down to. Re-establish ourselves back on the established event calendar, capturing every moment, capturing the content, but most of all celebrating and making new memories. So we just can't wait to do that. I also wanted to make a special thanks to the Tomoana Showgrounds operations team. It's been a tough sort of last few since March, but we've got there and we're really looking forward to working with them, even though there's some challenges, obviously, with the cyclone and it's paused everything. We're here to work with them, and we just want to thank Dean and his team. They've been outstanding and very, very patient with me. So I apologise for that. Anyway, on to financials. Unless you've got any, can I move on? Yep. So I'm just going to go straight to page 10 because all the rest, unless you've got questions of all the, all the text part. So I'm just going to go there. So as Tim was saying, it was a tough year. We've managed to get through every year till this year with a surplus. This year, unfortunately, this did not happen because, as you know, no one could plan for what happened. So we did actually still manage to get an overall event income of $593,000, which was obviously mainly supported through the Hastings Council's funding, which we're always very appreciative of, and thank you for that. Our riders, once again, copped it. I'm going to use the word cop it because I can't think of anything else. Every year, apart from the year that we were supported by the UTSP scheme, the riders unfortunately being hurt. Sponsors left a bit in, and then we obviously got some trust funding from our grants tool. I don't know if you're aware that in 23 we found out in December that all trust funding was off the cards for us. We couldn't have it that year, so that really put a strain on us if the event had gone ahead. And then donations. So we're just very grateful for everything we received in that cancellation year. So obviously the event was well underway, and so our expenses were already happening. And after pleading and doing everything in bowing to everyone, we managed to get our expenses down to $696,000. So it definitely could have been worse. But the effect that what this has actually done to us, actually looking into the future, it's made our suppliers go, as Tim said, the goodwill's run out, and a lot of our suppliers were amazingly holding their 21 price through. And now they've gone, we can't do it, and a lot of our expenses have gone up by 25%, which is huge. So after government funding of the cyclone and flood recovery fund of 40,000 and a little bit of interest, we in a certain net surplus, so deficit of 55 or 56,000 rounded. I do apologise, these are in draft. They have been with the auditor for quite some time, but everyone's just so busy, and it's quite a difficult cancellation, this one, because it really was full swing, and it was quite a difficult one to actually work through. So but Bruce will stay on top of that, and I'll give him the finals when they arrive. So yeah, so that means that our end equity is sitting at 181, which is a drop, which we never want to see, but we got through it. And I think after such a unfortunate cancellation, that a deficit of 55 is actually, not something to be. We're actually almost quite not proud of it, but you know what I'm trying to say. Not too bad. So over to the financial and the financial position. It's quite hard to follow this a little bit because a lot of our trade sites, sponsors leave their funds in. They don't ask for it back. It holds over. So of the current liability, of the assets of 496,000, 493,000 of that is held credits, or so it looks like we like rolling in it. We're not. So most of that is held credits. But the great thing is, it means that we've got the cash flow to go straight into the next year. So when we invoice 1st of June, they were all paid. So we didn't have to do that chasing and sort of thinking, when are we going to get that cash flow? The cash flow started straight from the start. So that was really promising to go into. And I think it's also just another sign how amazing our supporters are. So that's a finishing, that puts us in a position of finishing with the 181 after, where's the depreciation gone? Where's the assets? There it is. So obviously the assets have jumped a bit. So we've bought the stables. I know in Bruce's report it touched a little bit on, we had a few difficulties with our supplier. We managed to still get them landed at a price less than what we were quoted from one of our high-end suppliers. So they're landed and they're ready to go up hopefully in the next 2 months. Hence why that's jumped up so much. But as you know, we had to buy those stables for the event to even go ahead. Leaving us in a position of 181, which is,
Fantastic. And thank you for that, Tim and Sophie. Are you happy to take questions from the floor? I see Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, like to acknowledge the calibre of your new director. Has a very impressive profile, and hope she is able to add significant value going forward. I was interested in, I'd written down mitigating risks. So Sophie, you touched on some of it. Tim, you spoke about increasing their insurance, and in the report speaks about health and safety risks. Just wondering if you can talk more about how you're mitigating further risks around your business.
Yeah, so the insurance we've taken out is actually a very big cover. So not only we have taken out insurance for cancellation, we've actually taken out insurance for profit. So we constantly report to them, and whatever our event. So I think once we get into event mode, I've got an update with any change. We've actually insured the profit we're going to make. So financially, at any point we cancel, it means we can start building on our equity again. So that's that ticked off. Hence why it's got, and we couldn't go into that event to ensure the income was actually going to be secure. Is that we couldn't, as an event manager, we couldn't go into the event asking our riders just to trust us again. So our suppliers, our sponsors, and our riders and our trade sites all know that we've got you covered, we've got your back, along with the region. So that's financially, we've got ourselves covered. Health and safety, that's actually not even my department, the health and safety, but I'm sort of wondering what sort of part of that you want to...
It was just in the report it spoke about there's a real... I haven't got the words in front of me, but it appeared to be there was a concerted effort around health and safety of the event, riders, different reporting or getting information from a different source.
I think I can answer that because now that the grounds are owned by Hastings District Council, we have to have a different reporting process because we're actually using your grounds. And being a publicly owned grounds, then our health and safety actually hooks up like little things like people driving tractors. In the past, we'd come on and use their tractors. Now we actually have to get the licence and make sure that they're covered under Hastings District Council health and safety rules. So that's where it's jumped up considerably, and we're just working through it with a lot of our, for example, the person that builds our cross-country course. Now he's now got to have a licence, make sure he's got a licence to use his chainsaw and drive the tractor and things, just under the council rules.
All right, so a good step.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And one final question, the stables, are they put up, stay up, leave and remain on site all year?
They're semi-permanent, so once they've, I've been working close with the operations team on that, so once they're up, we're looking at them staying up at least where they are for 2 years, but the reason we've bought semi-permanent ones is that whatever the master plan does in the future, we can adapt or sell or use them without roofs. So we've put them up to ensure that we can honour our animal welfare, tick the box, make sure the show goes ahead as internationally recognised as it can, and then if Dean and his team or the operation team comes along and said, right, we're going to do this over here now, we can actually move them. So
But they are,
you
they
wouldn't
will
want
be
to,
permanent.
yeah, they're semi-permanent. You wouldn't take them down.
We're not taking them down
No,
each year.
no.
Is there an opportunity to create income during the downtime?
Of the stables? Or
Of the stables.
Yeah, so that's actually part, when we got the loan out from the council, that was actually part of the whole, that we are going to rent them out. So any events, and obviously our whole goal is to increase the events that come to Taumana Showgrounds. So any event that comes there that's going to have any quality of horse, they can actually book them off us, and I'll work with Monique on that, how to work out that procedure. So definitely renting the stables out per night. And then we're also looking at other sources. We've actually started renting out our fences, our yards, all that sort of thing. So we're looking at ways of doing other income, not just the event. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions for Tim and Sophie? Councillor Hickey?
Kia ora, just through the chair. I recall when it was presented to council some time ago, we talked about outcomes, and one of them was around active engagement with mana whenua and Papua Niue. How have we gone with that situation?
For the event coming up in March, we're still finalising all that side of it. We're still working with a lot of the schools, doing the whole schools program, which we promote out to try and get them in there. We're going to be working with the cultural groups to bring them in to try and bring a bit of, bring it into the event. It is hard to implement it into our event, but things like the blessing and the opening ceremony, things like that, we really want to bring them in. But we actually are constantly looking at ways, but I think at one of the last meetings I actually did say I'd recommend, we'd encourage any ideas you've got, because it is quite a difficult event when we're dictated by sport politics. So yeah, we are doing what we can, but we would like any suggestions on that one.
Oh, I'd like to recommend that the Takitumu ward members might be able to assist you with somehow and offer up their services to provide any advice and support, and also myself, if that is actually required. So happy to
Yeah, that would be great.
pass that as a recommendation.
So, Councillor Hickey, would you like that as a direction or a recommendation or a direction to be noted?
Well, let's take it as a direction to be noted, please.
That would be great.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Jessup?
Kia ora. Thank you for that presentation. It was really interesting to hear the progress that you've done. I'd just like to tautoko what Henry was saying, that we are here to help with any cultural events that could uplift mana whenua and the Horse of the Year show. Kia ora.
Happy to move. I nearly said your worship.
Yep.
Happy to move, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes. That was a good promotion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Sorry, Sandra. And
Happy to second.
Councillor Apatu, second. All those in favour, say aye. Against? No. Thank you, Tim and Sophie, for coming along.
And we are going to be inviting all councillors and other staff to come to their rounds, and I or one else will be taking you around to show you, because I see there's a lot of new councillors around here that probably have never been to the event, and it'll be good to just give you a tour of just what is on the grounds and how big it is. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. I'd like to now invite Dr. Grant. Introduce the rules. Yep, yep. Yep. Warm welcome to you, Dick, from the Hawke's Bay Museums Trust Chair. So the floor is yours.
No one? All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Pleasure to come to the council again. There's very little new in our annual report. One thing I'll come back to, which is a bit unusual for us, but like members of your council and your staff, we've been heads down and up working on the storage complex over here in Hastings Street. Most of the trust's time and energy has gone into our participation in the joint working group and trying to see our way forward, as obviously are both councils. We've had, like everybody else in Hawke's Bay, a pretty mixed year. We had the problems of COVID and the closure of the MTG for sustained periods of time, and then we got over that, and Gabrielle came along and we went back into periods of closure and non-visitors. So it's been a pretty grim 4 or 5 years for a regional museum whose objective principally is to show people of the province and its visitors what the social and other history of Hawke's Bay is through our collections. So our exhibition times and dates have been constrained, but we still run a regular schedule of new exhibitions through the MTG, and I hope that many of you, when you go across to Napier, if you ever actually go across to Napier, drop into the MTG to have a look. The one significant difference this year, and you may have picked it up reading the annual report, is that our assets increased substantially because donors, principally the MTG Foundation, which is our sort of arm's length philanthropy group, donated some quite serious artworks to the collection this year. So we went up to new assets of about $175,000, which are now in the permanent collection of the MTG. So that is worth pointing out to you. The other thing I should say, but you'll hear of this from your own councillors and your staff, that the joint working group is rolling down the turnpike, and we have another meeting tomorrow. We are, if you want an outside view, we are making progress, and we are making progress steadily, and we are making progress sensibly. I don't think I need to say anything else, Mr. Chairman, except through you to thank the council, councillors and staff for their continued cooperation with the trust, which we appreciate very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Any questions for Dr. Grant? Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Dick, I'm sure the council would be interested in hearing about the fundraising initiative that you've got as far as the Hawke's Bay Museum Trust storage is concerned, and the Huia feathers.
Yeah, thank you. Malcolm. I mean, through you, Mr. Chair, the trust undertook to try and raise $1 million for this project, and being smart thinkers, we very quickly subcontracted that to the MTG Foundation. So the burden of the work is being done by the foundation, but together, and we have discussed this in the joint working group, one of the projects which Councillor Dixon has referred to is making use of the exterior of the new storage centre and its design to aim to get sponsorship for what will be 40 feathers around the exterior. So the foundation launched that process 2 weeks ago, and already they tell me there is some interest in it. If we are successful in this operation, the trust target of $1 million should be reached reasonably quickly and easily, although I hate to say that because in the current climate, demand on philanthropic funding is quite high. But throughout 2024, the foundation and the trust will be carrying out a systematic campaign, not only to get sponsors for the feathers, but also to raise money independently of that to help the project overall.
And thank you for your support from the trust. It's very much appreciated. More than happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Kerr.
I'm happy to second, but I just do have a question. I'm interested in the trust's philosophy around insurance, given the value of the asset is so high and so many of the items, if not all of them, are irreplaceable.
Are you suggesting that we should over-insure or under-insure?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just interested in your philosophy.
Okay.
I might learn, quite possibly.
Okay.
It's a hard question.
It is a hard question. I mean, we take out insurance on the collection. You are correct, Councillor. I mean, some items are irreplaceable, and therefore you have to be very careful that you don't take a huge insurance premium on them, because if they go, they go. And but we follow standard museum practice in New Zealand. We talk to other museums about their insurance policies, and so far we have been pretty successful. Now, whether that's successful in avoiding accidents or successful in preventing them, I wouldn't want to say. The things that happen to the collection, being in large part 30% a social collection, are accidents of aging. So we've got a case tomorrow where there's a certificate of belonging to Sir Donald Maclean when he sent a container of wool to the International Exhibition in Chicago in 1902 or 1903 and got a prize for it. And the prize was an illustrated certificate. Well, it's come to our attention and it is completely, not completely, but I would say 50% illegible.
Okay.
Now, it is a question for the collection. Do you claim insurance on it? Well, you obviously can't, because no insurer is going to give you any money for it. Secondly, what do you do with it? You can't display it. So we have those sorts of incidents occasionally. We've had a few pigeon poo incidents in the Hariri storage. We've had water in the basement of the MTG building during high water. But the actual collection itself, we have managed to keep in reasonably solid protection, and we haven't had to make large insurance claims. So we think if we can go on that basis, our insurance policy is about right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a mover and a seconder. So all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Yep. And thank you, Dick. And those of us. Oh, did we? Oh, sorry. Kelly?
Sorry, Michael. Thank you for that. I was just interested in the scope of the fundraising, and are we allowed to be invited to come along and help when you do have the fundraising? I'd like to come.
Yeah, any volunteer with money in their back pocket is very welcome. No, we haven't, because of the various delays, Councillor, we haven't actually come up yet with our sort of state-of-the-art marketing campaign, which is why we will do that in 2024. But one of the things where we think we will come back to you is, are there community organisations that you know of through your work in the council who might, say, okay, yes, we could put our hand up for $500 to put into the kitty. So it's the smaller stuff that I think we will come back to you on. The larger stuff, we'll just have to go out there and bang the door and see what happens to us.
Yep, thank you, Dick. And those of us in Hastings are very excited to see what is a skeleton being turned into Kura, our archival system. And I know, talking to the collection staff over in Napier, they're very busy, the arduous task of packing it all up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I should say this as an account of Bruce, but your annual report had some fantastic photos. And I was after a photo of the Hiratonga Maori Choir for a long time, so very good.
Yeah, well, could I just?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Sorry, how many councillors in this room have visited the MTG in the last year since I last spoke to you? Okay. We've got quite a lot of good photos.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you for. Oh, yep. Mr. Allen's just getting the airport crew to come in. Just watch the thing. There's a presentation to do. Yep. Yep. Welcome, Rob and Rochelle, to the. You've got a presentation to start us off today. Yep. Yep.
Oh, thank you. Ahi mahahi marie. Welcome, everybody. And I'd like to begin by just thanking Mayor Sandra and Kirsten for a wonderful letter that went to Air New Zealand recently. Sadly, it wasn't quite the response we wanted, but we'll keep trying. And then secondly, I'd love to introduce Rochelle Ham, who's our new CFO, but she's been here for newish. She's been here quite a while now. In fact, she arrived the day before the cyclone. And I think her first job was cleaning out the toilets, unfortunately.
I'm afraid so.
That's right. Okay, so most of you will probably remember it was a nice, very cool, brisk November morning where we had our blessing and opened up the lovely forecourt. And we're very proud of the facility now. It's quite something to be special about. Zero harm. We've actually changed our measurement of harm. It previously was an LTI, and we've changed it to an MTI, and that's why we have two. So we had 2 medical treatment injuries during the year. So we've sort of lifted the bar on that one, and it's an area that we'll continue to keep pushing on and trying to improve. As you'll see from the numbers, we've had a very good, strong year with serious growth in passenger numbers, revenue, EBITDA and net profit. So we're very happy to have a strong performing entity, and it's certainly enabled us to start to focus on some other projects as well. One of which, of course, is the new fire truck, and with that will come eventually a new fire station. And we continue to push hard on our ACA accreditation level. We sit with 4+, which is the only airport in Australasia to hold that facility or that accreditation. And we'll have to keep working hard on that because very soon we'll have level 5, and level 5 will involve Air New Zealand and some of our large carbon emitters on airports, so that'll be quite challenging for us. So as you probably were well aware, we were fortunate in that we were able to be fully operational right throughout the cyclone, and it was quite interesting for us because we hadn't seen quite so many people in the terminal at one time before, and it was really a pleasure to be able to provide some essential services to the community around Wi-Fi, connecting with loved ones. So that's a role that perhaps the airport hasn't played in the past, but certainly an important one. And we're mindful of that, and obviously also with that comes the necessity to start doing some further improvements to the apron and some of the facilities at the airport. On our statement of intent, we've made good progress throughout the year. You'll remember last year, coming out of COVID, we were struggling to execute a number of the projects. Well, we've moved through that now, and it's looking pretty good. And you will see the Sun Air achievement. It's a small one. It's a small aircraft, 6-seater, but it does provide an essential service to the Hawke's Bay community, and we're sincerely hoping that we might be able to secure, or with the airline, secure a larger aircraft to just facilitate that very essential service. So I'm going to now have the pleasure of passing over to Rochelle to talk about some more slides, and then I'll come back at the very end.
Okay, so the purpose. Oh, sorry. This slide just demonstrates essentially the real uptick, I guess, in performance for FY23. So we've been tracking fairly flat right through from FY19, and then FY23 we got the massive increase in passengers. So that's the top purple line. So you can see we came off FY19, which we're less than FY19, but that included Jetstar in those numbers. There was about 100,000 Jetstar passengers, whereas now we're pretty much predominantly Air New Zealand. We had some Origin Air and some Sun Air by the end of the year, but really nothing consequential, I guess. So a really sound financial year, $12.7 million worth of revenue, of which Air New Zealand makes up just over 60% of that, so it's a significant amount of it. 5.2 million OPEX. Key aspects in there are salaries, wages, and just running costs. Net profit after tax audited, 2.8 million. So included in that number, we also had some revaluations done at the end of the year, which were mostly around business park land revaluation and also replacement cost, depreciable replacement cost revaluation. So the total of that was 631. I think the really pleasing things here are the financial metrics, just in terms of where we ended versus the SOI. So our return on equity is significantly higher at the end of FY23 actual than what the SOI was, so at 5.5%. Our equity percentage is growing all the time, 63.6%, and our gearing is 30.5%. and we're planning to slightly improve those this year. Just a bit more detail around the passenger numbers in FY23. So 640,000 through the terminal for the 12 months. I guess you can see there the record month was actually March, which was the month following the cyclone. So lots of people coming in, going out. Highest month ever for Air New Zealand through our terminal as far back as we can actually see. So 67,000. So massive month, and I guess the other call out there is that load factors, so people on the plane versus capacity was at 94%. So really there was no capacity left during that month. But even if you look at it across the year, we finished at 86%, which I think our SOI was based off 78%. So quite a lot more people on those planes, even if the actual number of planes flying were fairly similar. If we look forward to FY24, essentially pretty moderate growth. I think our SOI is based off 650,000, and some of that is we've upped our load factor because we are consistently exceeding the 78% that we had seen, but also there are a few more services on next year, particularly in the Christchurch route, which is quite interesting. Next. My PA needs to improve, eh? All right, so just in terms of commercial revenue, one of our goals has been to diversify away from relying 100% on aeronautical revenue. So we have upped our commercial revenue 77% on last year. Car parking has been a massive contributor to that, but and part of the success there was introducing ticketless parking, so that removed a lot of the barrier issues we'd had through wet tickets. But also our retail is probably the other really big call out there, and car rentals. In terms of retail, it's been consistent for our operators in the terminal in terms of how much revenue improvement they've seen during the year and continue to see. So looking forward to seeing what some of those look like as we progress this year. So then we've sort of just put together a little bit of looking forward to 2024 and what sort of things we're targeting and where we want to go and where we think we can get to. So the key things here, capital works program. So we've got some pretty hefty capital requirements during this year. We've got 8 million in the capital plan, and that includes things like apron overlay. So the cyclone essentially deferred a lot of the capital works that we were hoping to do in the last quarter of FY23 into 24. So that's now planned and hopefully happening soon. We're still targeting zero harm, but once again, now that we've changed our metric, we're actually getting better at capturing some of the data, so it'll be really good to see some of the stats that come off that. And that's for customers, staff, pretty much anyone who enters that terminal is covered by our harm metrics, so that's quite a challenge, shall we say. Passengers, 650k versus the 640 that we did last year. Profit fairly consistent, as is revenue. The key metric there is the Air New Zealand pricing that changes those numbers around a little bit. So the more people we get through the terminal, generally the less our passenger rate is. So that affects the revenue lines. Some of the other key projects here, we've got Rob and Judy working pretty hard on the Freight Park initiative. So actually developing a freight hub within Hawke's Bay at the airport. We are planning to draw down debt to fund the capital program of 2.8 million. The other big thing here is that it's our 60th anniversary in February, so we are planning some pretty cool events around February, March. And I think the other two big ones there are a continued development of the solar farm and also the Aero Park. If we just look at, given that we're through the first quarter in FY24, just sort of give you a bit of an update. So essentially, we are slightly ahead of SOI in terms of profit, so 486 versus 425. Our passenger numbers are down a little bit, but I think the call out there is we've had some significant weather events affecting, like we had about 3 days of fog we've had wind, all sorts of things which has seriously impacted on our passengers. Our actual loads and the number of services are way up there, so I think we're sitting at the moment at 84% load factor in what would traditionally be quite a quiet time of the year. So the call out there really is just that it's pretty positive. That's pretty much it.
And last time I was here, we talked about signage, and I thought I would bring some images of exactly where we're at this moment. And it has been a bit of a challenge. The Maori words actually are very long, and it's actually quite hard to squeeze them into a sign. But we're about to launch them, and we certainly will have them up before Christmas. We're now waiting on Mana Hariri to just sign off for us on those signages. So we'll have some as you travel along Watchman Road. We'll have them on a landside check-in, arrivals, and there will be some signage on airside as well. So very slow, and I have to apologise for that. We should have had this up probably day one, but it didn't happen, and we've just got to get it done. And then lastly, I want to talk about a couple of sort of general business issues that I'm sure you'll have some interest in. So we're seeing airfares continually sitting at the higher end, I would say, caused largely by just the load factors. So we're not seeing enough service capacity in Hawke's Bay to lower the pressure. So people are still flying, and they're paying a lot to fly. So Judy and I in particular have been working hard to try and attract some additional airlines into Hawke's Bay, and we'll continue to work on that. And it'll be a mixture. It'll be some of the smaller airlines in New Zealand, and it could also involve someone from offshore, but that's yet to happen. But we continue to work on that. On the dividend front, there is a dividend that's provided for in the 2025 year, and the board will no doubt review that again this year to assess its appropriateness. And as Rochelle has mentioned, for the moment we've been repaying debt, so we've paid quite a chunk off our revolving credit facility, and we've been investing in infrastructure as well. But obviously, that scenario will change. And then lastly on the solar farm, I'm sure you're all really intently interested in what's going on there. We've had two difficult matters. One is an inland wetlands issue, and if you're familiar with the relatively new legislation or regulations around the NESF, that is proving to be quite problematic for us, and the Regional Council is taking a very hard line on it. And so we're pushing back hard in terms of our ability to just develop essential infrastructure on airport. So that's a continuing watch. And then with the solar farm, we've commenced a couple of technical surveys, and what they're indicating is that there are certain sites on the airport that are of Maori significance. So we'll have to be very mindful of those as well, and several of them are in the solar farm site. So that will slow us down, but we are passionate about trying to at least lodge a consent by February next year.
Happy to take questions, Robin, Michelle? Yep. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Rob. Can you explain to me the link between the fees that you as an airport charge an airline and the price that the airline charges for its tickets? How strong is that link?
The fee's quite small. So to fly into Hawke's Bay will cost a passenger $12.27.
Okay.
And they'll be paying on average probably $300 to $400 on an airfare. So it's relatively minor.
Thank you.
Councillor Redstone.
Thank you for your presentation. Looking forward to you getting consent on the solar farm. And I'm just wondering, one of my questions arises from that. So when we take on board Air New Zealand's emissions, will that help to mitigate that? The solar farm?
It shouldn't directly impact it, but what we are very keen to try and do is to obviously provide the services on airport that Air New Zealand will require as they begin to electrify their fleet. And it may well be that they go into the hydrogen space rather than electricity, but that'll depend a bit on the size of the aircraft that they choose to fly.
Thank you for that. My other question's around the business park and how that's progressing. We haven't had an update, I don't think.
Yes, we've had quite good interest in the business park. We nearly signed up a tenant just before the end of the year. But unfortunately, there was some legislation that went before Parliament around supplements, and they've pulled back and want to reassess their position. But there is good interest, and it won't be too much longer before we secure a tenant. And then I think when we do that, we'll start to see some real momentum occurring.
Councillor Nixon.
Thank you. Yeah, I've sort of got two question areas that I'm interested in, but before I move to that part, in my view, the airport's prime function is to get people in and out. It's actually it's like a bus stop, and without that airport, the Hawke's Bay economy would suffer tremendously, and I think it is currently suffering. I saw your 94% load factor for March. Now, I know that was exceptional circumstances, but 86 is just unbelievably high, I think. 94%, it really means there are no seats. For a month, that's just unacceptable, in my opinion. I'm not blaming the airport, I'm just commenting on that.
Yes,
And it's worth remembering that,
that's right.
when we've had lots of discussions about this before this meeting. And we did write, as you saw, our mayors wrote to Chief Executive of Air New Zealand just pointing out we might not have got the answer we wanted, but at least we registered our situation. In 2019, the last sort of uninterrupted year, we got up to, I think, about 750,000 people, and we were talking 1 million passengers. We're at 640. So I'm interested in an update. Where are we going to end up at the end of this financial year based on current figures? You've got a few months now, 4 months almost of the new year. And from what you were saying there, it looks like numbers have stalled. Is that right?
There's modest growth occurring, and you're right, it's because of lack of capacity. I think if Air New Zealand could put on another 3 or 4 airplanes a day, we would see that filled, just judging by what we see.
So I did see in New Zealand, I think, have ordered another couple of ATRs. Is there any promise that we're going to see them?
Not directly. We have asked them that question. I've got a meeting tomorrow with them specifically on that. We're also really concerned about their jet fleet, because their jets have got cracked engines, and the issue that will surround that is they might likely take some ATRs off existing regional services and put them on, say, Christchurch, Wellington, to give them the ability to service the jet engines. So that probably I would say that Air New Zealand is most vulnerable now as it's been in a long time in terms of its ability to service regional airports.
Yeah, they've got about, 20 aeroplanes affected. That's or right. Something, which is turbine blades, and it's going to take 2 years to fix that problem.
That's right.
So I guess, we're not going to hit a better passenger number, are we, anytime soon?
No, not without a new competitor.
Okay, that's answered the first part of the question. The next thing is, I'm interested in the financial arrangements. I noticed we had 26 million in debt, and I just wondered what impact is rising interest rates having on debt repayment. I've lost the figure, it's gone off my screen. It jumped, more than doubled in the last year compared to the year before. So what's going to happen in the current year, and if debt level, interest rates remain at the current levels, where are we going to end up?
We're actually fairly lucky. We've hedged quite more than half of that debt, so I think about 53% is actually hedged through interest rate swaps at around 2.82 to 3.1%.
How long for?
The biggest one is out till 2028.
Oh, wow.
So that actually sort of hedges our position a little bit. I think on the remaining portion, we're still paying around the 7%. And I know that definitely did double in the last probably 8 to 9 months. So we forecast that in our numbers. We've got about $1.5 million worth of interest in our SOI. But yeah, definitely the hedge position on those interest rate swaps has saved us in terms of those rising interest rates.
Now, on costs, other costs, I couldn't help do a little count up of all those little pictures, and it looked like you had about 18 staff. I can remember we used to have one manager out there working 30 hours a week. It seems an awfully big increase, particularly when passenger numbers, compared to historic, are actually not that high.
Yeah, it's an operational, yes, I agree, so, yep.
Okay, I'll see if there's anything else I want. It's a pity you're cutting me off, but never mind. Just curious, do the military pay for, because we had a lot of military flights over that period, do they contribute to the revenues?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, okay. Well, I think that's all I can say. I do look forward, I think getting another airline is going to be really difficult, but I do look forward to some improvement in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. Your worship?
Kia ora. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, team, for a great presentation. It's always lovely to see you, and can I just acknowledge the work that has been done over a really difficult year, and can I also acknowledge how proud I feel every time I come through the airport. It's an amazing airport, and we're very, very blessed. I'm just following our conversation the other day, Rob. I think there was a fascinating stat for me as I left the airport, understanding that Hawke's Bay has is the biggest regional connection through Auckland Airport, and that was really interesting for me in terms of what is our vision, what is our big picture, how do we think about the future, how do we think about jet capacity, and those sorts of conversations. So it's just, this isn't today, but it is a conversation that and particularly through our collaboration with the Regional Recovery Agency, working with Matariki in terms of our bigger vision, I think that I look forward to those strategy and those planning times. So that's really, really helpful for us to learn that information. Thank you for your report. I'm happy to move.
Yep, thank you, Your worship. Yep, Councillor Redstone, second. Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Chair. Rob, I don't have to ask the question that I had here, but thank you very much for looking at those welcome signs. Appreciate that.
Councillor Heke.
Kia ora, just also thanking you for the presentation. So this one's more of a cultural aspect. I noticed that Robbie Williams landed, and I know many other great artists and VIPs have arrived. And every now and again, I see in Auckland this cultural group that turns up at the airport, has an event where they create this tourism persona event where they welcome all of our dignitaries that are arriving into the Auckland airport. And every now and again, I see the whānau do the same thing. Is there a position where someone of Hawke's Bay or could provide that on a more formal basis as opposed to just an ad hoc basis? That's my first question.
Look, I totally agree. I think we are a little bit shy in that respect, and we need to advance that. So it's a very good point, and we will take that on board.
I'm happy to assist with that through the chair of how we could navigate that space. Also with mana whenua at the prominence of that as well. My second question, I just want to acknowledge you for the use of te reo Māori in your signs and literature that you do, because as a speaker of the te reo and a council that endorses the two of the three bilingual, or the languages, official languages of New Zealand, Aotearoa, persevere, stick with us. We know there can be a long name, but it's not as long as Central Hawke's Bay's longest name in the world. But Hiono, you are an example to all airports around Aotearoa, and we follow in the steed because we know that, I know for a fact that that was laid prior to our signs and things like that. So kia kaha, kia mai, kia manuinui, and just want to acknowledge on that, kia ora.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hike. Is there any more questions or comments? Right, we have a mover and seconder, so all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Yep. Thank you, Robin, Rochelle, and also too, thank you very much for the role you played over the cyclone with the Community Hub. I know a lot of friends and family are very appreciative of that, and also too the work that your volunteers do, as well as you know, that they do a fantastic job. And please pass on our thanks to Wendy, who couldn't make it here today, and we look forward to the 60th celebrations next year. So thank you for your attendance. Yeah, thank you. Ross, are you going to speak? Going to speak to that?
Ross is coming up.
Ross is going to come up. Oh, yeah. Okay, Ross. So Ross will just introduce. Yep, sure, you go for it. Yep. Right, the next item is the quarterly financial report, and I'll hand that over to Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Chair. I think most of you have met Ross before. So Ross is our new CFO. He's been away on leave for about 3 months, but is now back with us. So and helping us navigate our way through, particularly with the LTP that's in front of us in this challenging financial space. So I'll hand over to Ross to take us through the paper that's in front of you. And yeah, Aaron Wilson's apologies over in Napier and couldn't be here this afternoon.
So the new improved version. Not here. Okay, so we've got the report there. I'm just going to highlight some brief points. Normally from my past history, the first quarterly report for financial reports is normally a bit of a non-event. It's not a normal quarter because obviously we've got the response for Gabrielle. So when we look at our revenue, our expenditure, that's totally quite different to budget because we've got all the unbudgeted spend relating to the response for Gabrielle, which means our revenue is well above budget, expenditure is well above budget, and there is a net cost of that which is impacting on our financial situation. So for the first quarter, we're reporting sort of a deficit of about 5.7 million for the first 3 months. We expect that will grow as the year goes on as we chew into our Gabrielle response. The other two factors that we've highlighted in terms of the key drivers, our depreciation expense is higher, and that'll continue to track higher as we go through the year. And we're exposed to higher interest rates. We've got a combination of, we have a higher level of debt, and we're paying a higher interest cost, higher interest rates on that debt. So it's having a big impact on our financial position. A lot of other areas highlighted in the report, challenging in the first 3 months due to the phasing of budgets. There can be 100% with those, especially after 3 months. One we did highlight, obviously, we noticed a decline in volume and revenue in the consenting area, which obviously is just where the economy's at, and just an indicator that I refer to. Looking ahead, as I've mentioned, the deficit is expected to grow progressively as we go through the year. We intend, when we do the half-yearly report, to have a look at it, try and project forward, give you a better feel for where we may end up. Obviously, we'll progressively improve those projections, but we'll do the first projection for the half year. And for the half year, we'll try and put together a picture of what we know in terms of what we're expecting the Gabrielle response to cost for the year, because we're still obviously working through the detail of projects, etc., with the Crown agreements, and we'll have a better idea of what projects we plan to do this year versus in the following years. Other couple of areas to highlight. Council has a very high base capital program. You know, if we deliver all of that, that's going to have a big increase. Obviously, it locks in the debt. Once we've borrowed the money, we're obliged to pay the interest costs on that, and that will have a big impact as we roll into the LTP. So, you know, that is something that we need to have a close look at. Also, I highlighted that, you know, we are seeing lower levels of DCs. We rely on the DCs to help support growth-funded debt. So obviously, you know, if we've got a $12 million budget, if we only get 3 or 4 million, then there's an $8 million cash hole. And if we, you know, if we still spend our planned growth expenditure, that will be an extra $8 million we have to borrow. So we've got to watch our expenditure relative to the income in that space. Other than that, I'll just leave it for questions.
Let me just add something. I think, and the point that Ross just made around looking forward and the forecast that we'll have a better understanding in the new year, as we report the 6-month result, will have an important bearing on how we look forward as well with the long-term plan and our 3-year budget, their financial strategy that we needed to develop in response to Cyclone Gabriel and in response to the impacts that we've had on this financial year as well as last, and looking forward. So that forecast is really important on a number of fronts, and it's not just about trying to understand where we are in this current financial year, but it will be an important ingredient into the LTP and our financial strategy as well.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. So now open up for questions.
Thanks, Chair. This has been a horrendous period in our experience. I can't remember anything like this in my time on council, and I guess hopefully we won't see it again. 2 questions I've got. The first one is, I notice the personnel costs are running about $750,000 under budget, which is one of the few things that's sort of helping improve the bottom line, so to speak. What is our expectation? Because a lot of that is I think, due to unfulfilled positions. Are we continuing to maintain those positions as unfilled, or are there plans underway to start filling those gaps, which will close down the surplus that we've generated in that area?
Generally, those roles, if we've been holding about, normally we'd sit around 30 vacancies at any one period of time. We're currently sitting around 50 and a bit more. So you know, that does come with a financial benefit for that, but it also puts lots of pressure on the balance of the organisation. So we are currently actively pursuing fulfilling those roles. We have a standard process at the exec meeting on a weekly basis where we review vacancies and new roles that are being advertised. So, and challenge where we need to around the need for those vacancies to be fulfilled. So, but as we stand at the moment, there's about 50 vacancies which the team are actively pursuing.
I'm just worried we might suddenly start spending the money. The second question I've got is unbudgeted expenses. We seem to regularly come across or be presented with items for approval that involve expenditures. It's not in this agenda, but it's on every other agenda we seem to have. What measures can we, or what measures are we taking to try and either offset those under-budgeted expenses, like swapping opportunity for things that we can delay? How do we handle that? How do we make sure it just doesn't all get out of control? You know, I think $1 million in the last meeting, you know, over 12 meetings, that'd be $12 million. I'm sure that's not going to happen, but.
I'll just touch on the $1 million and then I'll pass to Ross. I think the $1 million from last council meeting conversation is a good example, because within that were two projects that council was asked to sign off on. One was around investigating more work into the Havelock streams. We're confident that we have an external funding source for that, and we're exploring that. The other one was around removing of trees from the Tainui Reserve. And again, I worked with the team to explore opportunities around where we could identify savings. There were some potential savings within the parks area that weren't funded appropriately, so we put that to one side. But we are continuing to look at other ways of funding that activity. And or that particular unbudgeted activity. And we are also looking at ways where we can bring in some external funding. There's a couple of opportunities for that which we're currently exploring. So I think as much as there seems to be a regular parade of unbudgeted requests, those two examples are both cyclone related and were presented to council last week. We have identified in 4.32 within your report a number of projects, and we will work on refining that in how we report that to council and capturing not just the decision that's been made and the expenditure, but where it's been offset with alternative funding sources or rebudget and reprioritisations.
Could I suggest maybe in future that we sort of are provided with some sort of summation as we go through these financial reports of unbudgeted expenses that we've already agreed to, just a running total, so we know where we stand, because they tend to build up and then we get a bit confused. I do anyway.
Mr. Chair, I think it'd be really helpful if you could explain how you're working with the executive team to look at how we approach budgeted funds
Yes.
for Councillor Nixon. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, Worship. So at the last pre-agenda meeting, we discussed exactly that, and wasn't enough time to do it for this meeting. So it's not only unbudgeted expenditure, but there's also subsidies against that, so which makes it a little bit more complicated. But we will be seeing that for the next quarterly report. Yep.
And I can reiterate that, obviously, now that I can't have any more leave, it has my attention. I have even been putting together a little template, intend to come back and report fully on everything we know about in terms of unbudgeted expenditure when we next come back to you, and try and project what it actually means for the council financially.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Macklin. Councillor Kerr.
Firstly, Ross, welcome back. And secondly, I really appreciated reading this document where the cyclone effects had been stripped out, because many of the scary figures are actually cyclone related. Even the DC's impact of cyclone and other effects. So thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Any more questions or comments? Yep, moved Councillor Nixon. Councillor Lawson, seconded. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Oh. Against? Sorry, did you have a question, Your Worship?
I'll save it for another day.
Okay, quick on.
Mr. Chair, could I just make a comment, please?
Yes.
I just would like to really thank the council team who've been involved in spending that huge capital expenditure caused by the cyclone and just getting out there and getting stuff done.
Yep.
It's really noticed by the community. At the beginning of the cyclone, sometimes we weren't seen to move fast enough. Now there's a real appreciation in the community about the massive amount of work that we've done and we're still doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Thank you. Right. The next item on the agenda is the performance and monitoring report for the year quarter ended 30th of September. And I'd just like to say thank you to Taylor Eubanks. Taylor put a hand up to develop this. It is a work in progress, but thank you for what you've done so far, Taylor. It's much appreciated. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Alan.
And also Olivia, wasn't just a one-man band. and Rose, who's up possibly watching, but not in the room. Certainly a team effort pulling this together. So we haven't actually got a presentation for you today, but just to talk to the report and we'll take it as read. The team have developed a new way of presenting this information. Hopefully it's easier for you to digest. There's two things we're trying to achieve with this. A, that it's easy for you to digest, but also easier for staff to prepare as well going forward. So I think the next quarter, which will be the half-year report, which you'll receive in March, will have a more complete flow with it going forward. So I think just on that, it's just, 2023 has been one heck of a challenge, and I think it's reflected through this document as well. Nigel's not here today, but I'd just like to pass on from the executive our extreme gratitude to the staff throughout the year that have helped get us through to where we are. There's been some very significant achievements throughout the year, and not just cyclone related. So Council BAU has continued on unabated in a lot of areas, and with that, a lot of pressure has gone on staff to deliver on that, and also from a executive perspective, a big thank you to the council as well, and for your support and guidance over the year, because it has certainly been challenging, and we've appreciated your support. So, and we're happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Allen.
Actually, it's not a question, it's just an acknowledgement that this new refreshed format allows me to scroll quickly through and see where the issues are. It's great, there's lots of green dots, and I haven't come across a nasty red one yet.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Your Worship?
Thank you, Chair, and likewise, I just find this so, in fact, I've got something noted on quite a few pages, Chair. So are you going to take us through, or do we just go through our pages and ask our questions?
Just go through and ask questions.
All right, thank you. Firstly, on the district plan review, can I just ask the team, please, how, now that we have the land categorisation post-Cyclone Gabrielle, how are we going to incorporate the land categorisation future district plan changes, and has that work commenced?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's probably two areas. As you know, we're working on that initiative to look at allowing one-for-one relocation out of the Category 3 area. And then also Asher Davidson, Council's lawyer, are looking at potential future changes to, for want of a better word, limit any future development processes. So, as you know, we're going to be coming to Council with the commercial guidance for building consents. And in that, there'll be some degree of leeway. Say, for instance, if you wanted to put an implement shed up or something like that in the valley, we can assume that's probably acceptable. But where it involves residential accommodation or possibly people who are working 24/7 overnight, then we'd have issues in terms of what we call intolerable risk to life. So the two areas that we're working in at the moment are obviously that initiative, and then secondly, longer term, how do we move towards having a little bit more control over development framework over those areas. The third thing we're doing, obviously, is we've got an updated map from HBRC. It shows all extended flooding, and we're tagging properties that come in for limbs that they've been affected by Gabrielle. And then over time, those get refined. So when we send them out, there's a disclaimer saying that this property was impacted by Cyclone Gabrielle. And then quite often people will come back and say, hey, we've got evidence to say it wasn't or was. So that's what we're working on.
Thank you. I'm pleased to hear about the work on the district plan though, John, because that's critical as people, suddenly pick up a map of the area and understand where the district plan will allow them to go now in the future. So, that is critically important how we manage through that. Also, through you, Chair, I have a question about the earthquake-prone buildings.
Yep.
And so we still have 78 earthquake-prone buildings in the city. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So out of 345, we've got 78 left.
And bear in mind, we also have that very high-risk category that we've largely dealt with, which was all the unreinforced brick masonry. And a lot of those ones were in the CBD, and Council also identified its main traffic routes and where pedestrians are walking, and they were the focus of our network. So I think we're going to be talking to the Landmarks group about what we think the implications of the legislation will be over time. That's coming up as well, but it's good that we've been able to keep on top of that work.
So through you, Chair, is the landlords have all the information that they need to be able to continue their work?
Yes, they do. I think the tricky bit is, you've seen it in Wellington, you've seen it locally here, who you engage is one of the big critical decisions, and that's kind of quite difficult because we've got some local practices who are very, very good and others who don't do much of the work. So, it's really how good a quality advice they get in the initial stages of doing assessment. That makes a big difference to which route they head down.
Thank you. Aquatics, you happy for me to continue through your chair?
Yes, Your Worship.
Aquatics, 17A review, when will this come back to council, and does the 17A review, just can't quite remember the terms of reference, doesn't include the operations of the pools? Okay, all right, thank you. Congratulations to the team on the splash planet. It was amazing to see that yesterday and to see people travelling as far as Auckland for the opening day. Senior housing, there is an additional comment here. Oh, that's Rebecca too, she's not here. I'll come back.
Yep.
Toi Toi Arts and Events Centre. I'm really interested in the comments here from the staff about risks and opportunities, page 33. For me, this is absolutely significant where it says the Great Wine Capital AGM for 2025, the bid for accommodation is, we didn't get that conference. We are the Great Wine Capital in Hastings because of the need of a more hotel accommodation, hospitality for big events. I think it's critical that we undertake that work to do a feasibility study to understand the opportunity of another second hotel in Hastings. It's going to hold back. Toi Toi Arts and Events Centre has been it's a fantastic destination for conferences. People love it, but they need to sleep nearby. So can someone tell me, are we doing that work?
Yes, there is some work underway on that. We'd have to come back to you with progress on it, but some work has been initiated.
Great, thank you. I'm also interested in the capacity for leasing out Cedric's. With the Arts Festival, I'd like to think that we are using and leasing a space, every space possibility for hospitality to make sure that we have the revenue from all of our sites. And I'd like to see a response as an action come back about what we're doing with a lease for Cedric's, please.
Thank you, Bishop. Take that as an action.
Thank you. Youth employment, page 37. Oh, that's Betsy not here. I can put my questions through. Cemeteries, please. Page 42. I'd be interested in reporting on the cremation plots and what we have available in both our two main Havelock and Hastings cemeteries. We only have reporting on burials. So I'd be interested to have that reporting included in this report so we understand how many sites and plots we have in Hastings and Havelock North.
So take that as an action.
Thank you. Hastings City Centre, the need for council to consider new railway crossing when, for safety and security. When will this plan be coming back to council?
Through you, Chair, we're hoping to have that early in December.
10th, thank you. Early December. Great, thank you. I'll just go back to the aquatics. The 17A review, Bex, I just couldn't recall, does that include the operations of our pools, the condition of them? And does it also, are we also making sure that, what is the terms of reference? I've forgotten, it seems like a long time ago. When's that 17A coming back to council?
Through you, Chair, so it's actually going to the Great Community Subcommittee first, and that's before Christmas, and then it will flow on through there. But yes, it does include all the condition of the assets and all the financial information as well.
Thank you very much. Senior housing, additional comment. HDC was found in breach of a tenancy tribunal hearing in August. What was that about?
Through you, Chair, from memory, that was the primary point of that was that we had some contractors that were working for us and they hadn't given due notice. Supposed to give 24 hours notice and they hadn't given the whole 24 hours.
Great, I think that's good to know, thank you. Youth employment, The industry contracts, there were, out of our young people coming into the Mahi for Youth shop, we had 100 young people coming in. Is that for the year?
Through you, Chair, yes, that will be for the year for that contract, but we have lots more sort of ad hoc people that come in that we refer on to other services, but that don't fit that actual contract. So that's 100 for that particular purpose of that contract.
So if we look at people signed up in Hei Potamo Rangatahi contracts and how many we've got into employment, it says 15. Is that the total of our youth employment for the year, or is that 15 young people into work?
Through you, Chair, yes, that will be 15 into work in that year, because lots of them obviously have lots of other training and preparation for work that they have to go through before they can get into employment.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you, Chair. That concludes my questions.
Thank you, Worship. Any more questions relating to the performance management report from councillors? Councillor Dixon?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks. Welcome back. Just around the aquatics to start with, I'm just looking at the figures for the Clive pool, and it's got a comment there that looks like they're down by 10,000 in the quarter, but the total is 16,000, just going by those red indicators going down and the green ones going up. Any particular reason for that? Sorry?
The down arrows are just showing that it's lower than the previous quarter, not that it's down by that much. That's the total number of visitors for this quarter. It's just showing you a trend. The next time we'll have detailed numbers on what those are. It was just because we didn't have the same benchmarks in the same format.
Thank you, fully understand. I had a similar question around the Hastings Sports Centre, because it was a very positive comment. The figures were showing it was tracking down. Thank you for that. That's two quick questions. The next one, page 37, the Youth Council. It had a number of fabulous events throughout the year, but I was also concerned about the number of meetings that were postponed through a lack of a quorum. Is there any particular reason for that?
Through you, Chair, I'd need to check that with the officers involved. Sorry, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Dixon.
Through you, Chair, I thought I had completed my questions.
That's all right, yes, sure.
But I have found that the Merrill Fund looks like it has $78,000 in it. My understanding was there was 15. So could someone just enlighten me when this was done, and do we have 15 or 78?
You say we've got more to spend.
The old figures?
Should we take that as an
Take
action
that as
to
an
be
action?
found out? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good action to take. Yep, thank you, Worship. Any?
I'd just be really interested to ask the exec team when the BIM will come back for sign off to the new government, our regional and Hastings priorities for the new government, and will that come back to council for sign off?
I'd have to check with Mr. Bickle, who's away on that, around the timing of it, and what the plan was around its official sign-off, whether it needed to go to all 5 councils for formal endorsement, or if that's a bit too clunky and we need to do a more streamlined approach to getting it sign-off. But I'll just run that past Mr. Bickle when he's back tomorrow.
Yep, thank you, Worship. Any more questions or comments? Thank you, Councillor Kerr and Worship. Second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Moved. Carried. Right. The next item 12, explain the Chair's report. The item has to go ahead. It is the Chair's reflections on the agenda. The item was not on the agenda as the Chair has taken time to receive advice on the large quantity of business information underpinning this agenda and reflect on the strategic implications and consequences of council. So can I have a mover, please, and a seconder to bring that on? Councillor Apatu, mover, and Councillor Jessup, seconder. All those in favour say aye. 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 Against? Yep. So now please refer you to the supplementary agenda. The report to the Performance and Monitoring committee. So I'll take the report as read, but I'd just like to highlight a few things such as 1.5. Mr. Allen has referred to the hard mahi done by the council employees, and I've talked about an externality. While the ledger reflects the money we've spent, it does not reflect the hard work which can run into hundreds and thousands of dollars of staff time over which they've done in addition to their normal duties. I don't mean cost. That would be if it was quantified. Also, too, in here I mention the debt now standing at 323 million and likely to increase. And as you'll see from the performance and the reports, interest net was $1.1 million over for this quarter as an unfavourable variance. And refer to 1.9. There's also commentary from Mr. Wilson's report, 1.8 to 1.11 regarding that. In the future, we'll be looking also to at the voluntary buyout office as they commence their operations. So happy to take any comments on the Chair's report from any councillors.
Good summary.
Thank you.
Are you going to move your report?
Yes, I'll move my own report, yes. Councillor. Seconded by Councillor Nixon. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. And Councillor Jessup is kindly to do the finishing karakia.
He tuku mahi ki a koe mi koeri mo tō hui tuatahi o tēnei committee. He karanga atu ki te rangatira a Damon. Mo te mahi, mo te puku mahi e noho ana I aia. Engari, he inoi tātou. Ka mutu a mātou mahi I tēnei wā. Piki te ora, piki te kaha, piki te maramatanga, amini.
Thank you, Kia ora. And thank you for all those who have joined us today on the live stream. And this concludes the meeting today. Thank you.
Well done, Chair.